So, why is it hard for people to build wealth? This is a question that I've started asking myself, and I'm going to ask you that question. Like, why is it hard for people to build wealth? Is there, do you have to have a certain personality trait? Do you have to be in a certain industry? Do you have to, have a certain background in order for you to be able to build wealth? What is it? Why do some people struggle with building wealth? And it's actually a lot of Americans. And I'll actually point to some stats here that's kind of alarming. But in asking this question, one of the books that I've been reading is called The Psychology of Money. And this book is a really great read. It's a book that I would encourage you to read. It's an easy book to go through. And on top of that, it really unpacks some of the answers to why it's hard for some people to build wealth. Now, one of the premise of this book is that building wealth doesn't have to do with you being smart or you being good. You being good with money doesn't equate to you being smart. It really points to you having a great financial habit. It's the habits that you form that point to you being able to build a wealth over time. And so in this video, what I want to do is discuss the conditions that are needed for you to be able to give you the fighting chance of actually building wealth and what we're actually up against, because what we are up against is very formidable. What we're up against is something that we constantly battle every single day, and it's constantly there pretty much 24/7. I mean, from the moment you wake up and you look at your phone, you're already in a battle. And so I want to talk about that, but also want to point out some of the behaviors that are needed in order for you to really improve your chances of building wealth. So let's first start with the outside forces that are working against us that we have to prepare for. And that is the modern capitalism environment that we live in, where you're encouraged to spend the money that you don't have, utilizing credit cards, and also living a lifestyle that you want to fake. In other words, fake it till you make it lifestyle that are really detrimental for you building wealth. And another thing I want to throw on top of that is the social media. And that is one of the things that is a constant battle for some people, where they see what other people are doing. They see other people having money, supposedly on social media, and they are influenced by that. Therefore, they make financial decisions to try to emulate that. And in doing so, they're actually destroying their future wealth building potential. So let's talk about the environment that leads to you not being able to build wealth. We are constantly marketed towards, and we are constantly pushed in a direction to spend our money. And in doing so, what we end up doing is buying stuff. And this stuff leads to you not having money, because the stuff that you have eventually is going to end up in two places, usually two places, in a landfill or somewhere in somebody else's house, or actually three places, somewhere in somebody else's house because you sell it or you get rid of it, or it just ends up in somewhere in your house that and you don't even look at it again, and it just becomes one of those old things, right? And over time, the stuff that you have right now today is going to become old, right? It's just going to continue with this it's going to continue with the cycle. But what we're doing over time in our lifetime is actually accumulating stuff instead of accumulating wealth. And one of the things that we have to define is what rich looks like and what wealth looks like. And when it comes to looking rich, you don't have to look far to get an example what it looks like to be rich. A lot of us can actually do that. I mean, if you think about it, to put it in perspective, if you're living in the US, you're pretty much well off. The stuff that you're able to buy, someone else in another country will consider that to be very rich. How much does the average person in the world live off? I just actually want to find that out. Before we do that, let me actually share with you the average income in the US. We're going to start there first. The average income in the US when it comes to household income is 114,500. The median household income in the US this is 2023 is 80,610. The average personal income in the US in 2023, you're looking at 214. The median personal income is 44,225. So now, what is the average income in the world? The average income in the world, let's see if we can find. Okay, so the average global personal income is 69, or actually the average personal global income is $9,733, while the average global household income is 12,235 per year. That's nuts, because if you compare it to what I read about the US household income, that is a astronomical difference in income levels. And so if someone outside of the US was to look in and look at the average American and the average income, they would consider them to be rich. Like, they have money to spend. But in reality, the average savings rate in the US is really, really low. The average savings rate in the US was 3.2%. So let's say $5,011 a year. So though we have pretty high incomes, and though we have pretty high household incomes and individual incomes compared to the world, okay, we are outliers in this situation, we have a really small savings rate. And one of the things that are actually conducive for you building wealth, that point to you being able to build wealth over time, is you having a high savings rate. And the thing about saving is that we know we need to do it, but we don't do it. And the reason why I believe we don't do it is because when we're choosing to save, we're choosing to withhold momentary pleasure. And that's hard for some people to do. It's hard for some people to forego momentary pleasure for the opportunity to be able to spend that money later on other stuff, or being able to use that money to do other things that is going to be more worthwhile to you. So when it comes to money, I believe that individuals put a value on it based on, what it means to them and what it can do for them that moment in time. And if we look at it from the perspective of having money coming in so that we can use it to live, but also to be able to build wealth over time, instead of looking at it from the perspective of having money coming in so we can spend it and buy stuff, if we change that mindset, we can actually heighten our chances of being able to build wealth over time. Because right now, your options are very limited. And the fact that they're limited is based on the fact that the money that you have coming in is all that you have coming in. And so in order for you to increase your options today, you're going to need to make more income to be able to buy more things, to be able to do more things. But to increase your options for later on down the road, it's not your income, it's the amount of wealth that you build over time in order for you to increase your options. And one of those options am I talking about? Think about it this way. How would you feel if you lost your job today? Some people that have the option will say, I'm going to be fine. Actually, I could sit back for maybe 2 years before I need to start looking for another job. Some people would say, yeah, I'm going to be screwed. I need to find a job within the next month or two, or else I'm in financial peril. One person has wealth, so therefore they have options. One person had income, but they didn't have any options because the income that they had spent it on stuff. They lost their job. They lost their job, but now they have all this stuff. But all these stuff that they have isn't sustaining them or helping them live till they find their next job. When we ask ourselves the question, why is it hard for people to build wealth? We have to look at the financial behaviors. What are they doing? What are they doing with their money? Because there's a difference between rich and there's a difference between wealth. And I think you know that. It's easy to point out rich people on Instagram. It's easy to point out rich people on social media, Facebook, wherever they post their image, they post their lifestyle. It's easy to point out people that look rich. It's hard to point out people that are wealthy. When I worked as an investment advisor, wealthy people, the people that I worked with that had wealth, if you saw them and looked at them, you wouldn't think they're wealthy. Why? Well, they weren't walking around with the name brand bags and they weren't walking around with the name brand clothes. And that was not what they valued. What they valued was having options. And that's a lot of our it's funny because a lot of our conversations was around putting together investment strategies. So therefore later on we can have options to do other things with our money and to do other things we want to do with our lives. It was never let's put together an investment strategy so that we can make more money in return so that we can buy more stuff. It was never that. It was always so that we can have more options, so that we can have more time. So what are the behaviors? What are the behaviors that point to success in building wealth? And folks, it's really, really simple. It's actually so simple that a lot of us may try to complicate it. And you don't need to complicate it. One of the simple behaviors that actually are conducive for you to be able to build wealth is having a good savings habit. Now, when it comes to savings, it's easier said than done. When it comes to spending, oh, it's really easy for us to spend. That is easy. The atmosphere is there for us to be able to spend money. The ease of spending money has not even, it's become so easy that you can accidentally spend money and not realize you spent money. That's how easy it could, like once you have your phone in your hand, you can actually accidentally make a purchase and you won't even realize, oh, did I just buy something? Like, what? I just purchased something. I didn't even realize it. And then you look at your bank statement, it's like, when did I buy that? It's easy for a lot of us to spend money. It's really easy for us to do that. But when it comes to saving money, it's very hard. And the reason why it's very hard is because of that mindset I pointed to. The fact that it's hard for some people to withhold the money they can spend today for tomorrow and save it. It's very hard for them to do that. But if you had a different value system where the things that you bought had lasting value and you focus on saving consistently, and even if it's a smaller percentage, you still did it because you knew that your money was going to grow over time because of the power of compounding. See, that's something I understood at an early age when I started investing straight out of high school. And I wasn't making much, actually. I was making like $12 an hour. And I remember I was only able to save like $50. And I opened a brokerage account and I put the $50 in there. And I said to myself, though this is a small amount, I'm just trying to learn the habits of saving. That was all I cared about because I knew in order for me to be able to have money for the future, I need to be able to have a good savings habit. And I didn't grow up rich, grow up pretty broke. My family struggled with money. And so, I mean, like, I grew up poor, my starting my life out, my childhood, I grew up in the slums in Ghana, in Donsuma. If you guys are familiar with that area, that's where I grew up. That's where my family started off with, in the slums in Ghana. And even coming to the US, we still struggled with money. It was still a struggle. And understanding the financial economic system of this country, that was a struggle. And so it was not easy. But one thing I knew growing up as a child was like, okay, we don't have money. I feel like the best way for us to be able to have money is to be able to keep it. In order for us to be able to keep it, we have to save it. And that's that basic understanding I took with me, like, okay, I'm going to save the money that I have for the future just in case anything happens. I'm financially prepared. And you could say my money habits was formed from my childhood experience. Um, and so when it comes to savings, a lot of us find it hard because we do not put value in the future. We only put value in the present. Now, this idea of being able to save money really separates the individuals that are going to be able to build wealth over time and the individuals that are not going to be able to build wealth over time. Because you can have a high income and still be broke. That's a reality. And that's a reality that a lot of us face. And so really the option is up to you. Are you willing to break out of that? Are you willing to make that change? Or are you going to stay in the same position that you've always been? And are you going to accept the fact that, accept the fact that you're not going to be able to save money, so you're just going to spend it? If you're willing to do that, then I will say to you, your future outcome is not going to look good because your future self is going to look back at you and is going to ask, what did you do with all the money? Because we need it now, right? You're not going to have the same energy that you have today to be able to make the money that you're making in order to save it. You're not. It's just a reality. And so when it comes to savings, another thing that I want to talk to you about is when it comes to building a smart saving habit, is don't go to the extreme. And what I mean by that is a lot of us find it hard to save because we want to save a lot of money, and sometimes going to the extreme to try to save a lot of money is not sustainable. So therefore, you stop doing it. But if you save money on a moderate basis, it's sustainable. And therefore, it's easier for you to save over time than you just doing the extreme. Pinching to the extreme, only there's an outlier of people that are able to do that. But if you're able to say, okay, for example, one of the videos I talked about was the budgeting video where I talked about, you know, putting 50% away for your necessities, 30% away for your wants, and 20% away for your savings. If you're able to do that, right? If you're able to put 20% away for your savings, over time and do it consistently, over time, you're going to be able to build wealth over time in doing so. But if you're not able to do 20% now and you're able to do 10%, then do 10%. And over time, work towards to increase that and put your value into building wealth over time and saving over time so you can have the options to do other things over time. Options gives you freedom. And I don't believe you're truly free when it comes to your personal finance, when it comes to your finances, until you have money in the bank to be able to say, you know what, I can quit this job and go somewhere else. I'll be fine. Some people can't do that because they live paycheck to paycheck. So they're trapped, which is a sad condition to be in. To break out of that condition, you have to be disciplined and put money away in order for you to be able to save. I mean, to be able to build wealth over time. So, um, I want to leave you with this story. And this story you can actually find on YouTube. Story is about Mr. Earl. Mr. Earl. Now, Mr. Earl was an individual that, now this is an old story, but the principle still lies in the fact that number one, it's not about your intelligence because Mr. Earl actually was dyslexic and education. He went to school, but he didn't have like a high education. He worked as a parking attendant, making $12 an hour, and this is back in, let's say, this video that I'm watching is like 9 years ago. So let's just say that this is back in early 2000s. Okay, and so he had a family, but he was still able to save half a million and he was like age 70 and over age 70. Okay. So I don't want you to look at the age. I don't want you to look at the income. I want you to pay attention to the habits. You see, he made $12 an hour, which pretty much equates to $20,000 a year, but yet he was still able to save half a million. How was he able to do that? By investing. Well, how was he able to invest? Well, he was saving money. How was he able to save money? He was minimizing his lifestyle in order to be able to do that. He had a family, but he was still able to save half a million. On top of that, he was saving consistently. And here's another part of the story: the fact that as he was a parking attendant in Baltimore, the parking lot that he was at was around financial institutions. So one thing he did that was very, very key, I believe, to his success was asking financial professionals how to use his money, how to effectively use his money. And they pointed out to him, hey, you got to invest. You got to invest consistently. And that's what he did. Now, if he didn't ask that question, and he didn't talk to anybody, he just said hello and bye, you think he would have been able to find that out? He may have, but it may have taken him a longer time to find that out. But he found that out earlier in his career as a parking attendant, and therefore he was able to apply that knowledge and therefore invest and grow his wealth over time. And he was consistent. He didn't buy he didn't spend money on the luxury stuff. He didn't do that, and he was still able to build wealth. And so the point here is, it's not about how much money you're bringing in. Though that plays a role, the more money you bring in, the more you're able to save. But if you're bringing in money to spend it, then you're not going to be able to save much. It was about the behavior of consistently saving money over time and looking towards a future where he had more options, because when he put more money away, that means he had more options in the future. And I'm going to leave you guys with that. Hopefully that inspires you and encourages you to actually start putting money away. Hopefully this brings your attention to the fact that you're living in a world where you are constantly in the battle of fighting against the marketing, the hyper consumerism environment that we're living in, where you're encouraged to spend the money that you work hard for instead of saving it. Savings is where you are going to find the answer to be able to build your wealth. And it's not about how smart you are. Yes, you can have a high paying job. I can truthfully tell you, I've worked with people that made six figures and still live paycheck to paycheck. So that right there tells you that it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my next video, and I am out. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to subscribe. Hopefully, this video encourages you to subscribe. If not, come back to my next video.